John Locke and his defense of free markets from a point of view of basic human rights. If you want to follow on this or read about this, please turn to page 130 in Velasquez, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Fundamentally, Locke's defense of free markets. Well, actually, Locke never himself defended free markets per se. He lived in an earlier age before the onset of true capitalism, but his theory of rights has often been used to defend free markets and the basic liberties that we enjoy in the United States, and which are fundamental to capitalism. Okay, so Locke's defense of these basic human liberties, or what we would call negative rights, really, in most cases, negative rights, the idea being that we have certain rights which are ours, and other people, their only duty is not to interfere with those rights. Generally, people don't have to give us anything, but they do have to not harm us or harm each other. Locke's defense of basic human liberties, such as life, liberty, happiness, possession of property, and so forth, is based upon his theory of natural law. Locke envisioned a time at the onset of human history where people lived in harmony and in peace with the environment. Now, he's not saying this actually happened, but he's saying that imagine at the beginning of human history that people are living in harmony with nature, and everyone has their own little spot to live on, and we're all kind of spread out, and no one is interfering or hurting anyone. In such a state of nature, according to Locke, we would be able to do what we liked, and we'd be able to plant crops or cut down trees and build our house, be able to do whatever we wish, with the one caveat or the one warning, the one rule would be that no one harms other people in terms of their life, health, liberty, or the things they own. Now, these rights to life, health, liberty, and property are what we call basic Lockean rights, or basic human rights, and they're derived from this idea of a state of nature. Now, Locke goes on to say that in such a state of nature, where there's no government, there's nothing to inhibit us, we would be free to take whatever is around us, wood, air, vegetables, plants, whatever, and be able to use that to eat, but also we could create things, or we could make a garden and sell the fruits or vegetables from our garden. We could build various things. We could build whatever was possible for us to build given the natural resources we had at our disposal. And he says, whatever we mix our labor with, whatever we create as a result of our labor, would belong to us, and we would be free to in some way exchange it or sell it to other people in exchange for other goods or services that we desire. So this is what Locke envisions as a state of nature. Locke goes on to say, however, that in a state of nature, since there would be no government, there would be no police, there would be no military, we would all be living by ourselves on our own, obviously it would be possible for certain people who became stronger or faster or who built weapons to harm other people, to impose their will, to enslave other people. So Locke goes on to argue that in order to protect these basic human rights of life, health, liberty, and possession of property, these basic human rights that are available to us in a state of nature, Locke argues that we need to create governments. And so he promotes what's known as the social contract theory of government, in which people join together to create a government, and they give up some of their freedoms, allow the government to make decisions which take away some of our freedoms, But in return, then, the government protects us and protects our basic human rights of life, liberty, health, property. Now, Locke personally does not, as I said, does not argue in favor of free markets, but if you understand the free market and what's required in order to have a free market system, people have to have material wealth and have to be free to enter into trade. And the only way they can do this is if we're all on some sort of equal footing. And so the Lockean idea of government is that it's here to protect the very things that we need which make possible a free market. Okay? So even though Locke himself does not argue for free markets, Locke's theory of natural rights, deriving from a state of nature, Locke's theory of natural human rights is oftentimes used to defend, the Constitution of the United States, our basic freedoms, right? The Declaration of Independence pretty much quoted Locke in saying that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, included in those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So Locke's rights, this theory of natural rights, has been used to defend this system of government that we have in the United States today, and the system of government which allows for rights of property ownership and freedom to speak and to exchange our goods and services are essential to the capitalist system. And it's essential that these things are protected if we want capitalism to work properly, as it ought to work. Okay? So that's the Lockean defense of human rights or natural rights. And these rights are oftentimes identified as being essential to capitalism. And as a final note, it's very important to understand that Locke's argument is that we create governments to protect these rights, so that whenever governments do not protect the basic human rights that we are granted as a result of the laws of nature, then such a government is not a valid government and has to be changed. Again, this was one of the arguments of the founding fathers of the United States, is that England had failed to protect the basic rights that such a government was supposed to protect, and therefore this justified the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so Locke's rights, these negative rights, protecting freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, all derive from this idea that these are the kinds of rights we would have in a state of nature, and they're also extraordinarily important if we want to have a free market system where we can exchange the goods and services that we create of our own efforts, the sort of the sweat of our brow. Through our creativity and our effort, we make something, and therefore we ought to be free to exchange the goods and services that we create. Okay, so that's a little bit on John Locke and how his theories are used to defend the basic elements that are necessary for capitalism to thrive.